Alright, so really quickly, just wanted to show you guys, this is Jeremy Edwards' Facebook wall. The reason I'm showing you this is because, well, I could have a few reasons to show you this, but for this particular one is, so Elaine Crowell, the HR manager for David Saint Singh and Jeff Krumsick. One of the reasons she said I was being fired over the phone was there were complaints that I was smoking weed. Yeah, well, first of all, I have a permit issued to me by the state of New Jersey for years to smoke weed for my back. And I'm actually a pretty natural type person. I try not to put stuff in my body too much if it's like I barely even drink. I think this being on the island's the most I've had to drink in a long time, and that's just because it seems to be like a way that everybody bonded there. But I'm a weed person, have been for a long time, but it was hard to find here because it's North Carolina, and it's still, unfortunately, in New Jersey. It's been medically legal for years and years. It just recently, within the last year or two, became recreationally legal. Plus I was out in California where obviously it's very legal, and then suddenly coming to North Carolina where it's not legal, and there are no dispensaries, and people are just drinking, but people are still smoking around there. People are still smoking weed. Plenty of people, including Jeremy Edwards, the manager of the barn, for crying out loud, who, by the way, because I was getting really strung out, trying to wonder if this was a good idea because I couldn't find my medicine. How am I going to get my medicine? The nearest dispensary is 4 hours away in Virginia. I was thinking I should be able to find somebody down there, right? But then I thought what better about it when I went down there and realized this is really out in the middle of freaking nowhere. I don't know. And even if I do find anything out here, it's going to be really expensive. And that was the case. Really expensive compared to any place else where it's legal. And it's how am I supposed to be able to afford this? Yeah, well, it's just to find it to begin with. Because Jorge had already called me out. He's like, you smoke the mota? I guess that's what they call it in Mexico, weed. Marijuana they call it mota. At least that's what he told me. And I'm not great at lying, so I was yeah, I've been smoking it for years. I have a medical need for it. It's what works best for me. I have a permit issued to me. It was prescribed to me by a doctor. And that's when Jorge told me I should contact Jeremy, because Jeremy smokes and he would be able to help me out. And so I did. I contacted Jeremy, and just to show you, that he smokes too, and he told me himself, because we spoke over the phone about it, and he put me in touch with somebody local to get it from. He was like, yeah, I come back from Oklahoma with just a big jar of it. He goes to Oklahoma. He's from Oklahoma. He goes to Oklahoma, home to visit, and on vacation and stuff, and then returns to North Carolina with a big jar of weed and smokes it, and knows people in the area that smoke weed, and he put me in touch with them so I could get weed. So it's what the fuck? What the fuck, Elaine? Excuse me? Sorry, what? Oh, and by the way, also, Jorge, that little weasel, piece of shit weasel, I can't believe. So I'm guessing he was the one complaining about my weed smoking, because it started off with Elaine saying there have been complaints about my weed smoking, and then within about an hour of that conversation, I was talking to David by the dumpsters near the barn, demanding answers why I'm being fired, because Elaine refused to tell me who was complaining about me, because I was I feel like I'm being sabotaged here. Because nobody came to me with any complaints beforehand. Nobody told me I needed to work on anything, if there were any problems with what I was doing or my work. Nobody, nothing. I was just being fired out of the blue. And they were like, well, we don't have to give you any reasons. This is North Carolina, blah, 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 blah. Law says we don't have to give you any reasons. Well, it was David that was the one who was like, well, Jorge's been complaining about you for over a month. Well, guess what? Elaine, David, Jorge brought me about an eighth of weed into the barn office that he got from one of the other illegal immigrant workers you guys bring in there within the week that I was fired. As soon as David came down with all the other illegal immigrant workers from the High Point location for that week or so, to like, I guess you guys were working on the motel and everything, Jorge was already telling me before you guys even came down, yeah, he's got a friend who's coming down with them, and he smokes the mota, and he could hook me up. And then next thing I know, like, I knew you guys had come down already. And then Jorge's bringing me an eighth of an ounce of weed, roughly, that, like, a sample gift baggie, into the barn office and handed it off to me. And then I find out within a few days of that, I'm fired because apparently he's been complaining about me, and some of the complaints have been that I smoke weed. Fucking seriously? What a rat bastard weasel he is. That piece of shit. He literally got me weed and then complained that I was smoking weed. Oh, no, he wasn't trying to sabotage me. Nah. He wasn't trying to get my job for one of his friends or relatives. Nah. What the fuck then? Huh? Oh, and by the way, Jorge drinks freaking all day long. He'd come into the barn and say that he'd started the morning with like 5 or 6 drinks. And then he'd leave at lunch and say he was going to go have a few more drinks. And then at dinner, he'd say, like after dinner, he'd say we was going to go have a few more drinks. Like, there were days I was worried for him because he said that he told me he had diabetes. And people with diabetes aren't supposed to drink that freaking much. I was actually worried for Jorge's health, and the whole time he was stabbing me in the back. What? Oh my God. What a piece of shit he is. And I'm a dum-dum for ever thinking, oh, he genuinely might have just wanted to be my friend. Huh? Fucking ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, okay, so they fired me. One of the things they fired me for was weed smoking. But their barn manager smokes weed. Yeah. Right here. Look, see at the bottom of his, right here. Reviews given. Med Shed, Inc. in Best Dispensary in West Oklahoma. Dispensary, as in marijuana dispensary? Yeah. And then Vape Spot. Gee. So he's given reviews for dispensaries, for weed dispensaries. It's like, so yeah, your barn manager smokes weed. His little rat bastard, toady, Jorge, drinks to excess. Half that island actually smokes weed, or they drink like fish. I think like every few nights there would be some kind of brawl or crazy argument breaking out over at that restaurant bar because of all the crazy ass drinking going down over there. Like, I'd rather just be chilling, smoking my weed than getting into drunken bar fights. So y'all are just fucked. Do you think maybe, Elaine, David, do you suppose you two could grow the fuck up and give me some real truthful, straight answers? Absolutely fucking ridiculous. It's dealing with children. Let this be a lesson to anybody who is currently or thinking about working for Elaine Crowell or David Saintsing or Jeff Krumsick. They will not fucking be truthful with you at all. They will talk out of both sides of their mouth, and they will absolutely fucking dump you and treat you like you're trash once they're done with you. And they will not give you straight answer, and they'll run you in circles. So, just thought I'd point that one out. Piece of shit. Oh my God. Yup. Hi, Jeremy. Hi, boss. Oh. Fucking. Oh, here, while we're on here, let's just look at some real quick. By the way, I clocked that this dude, before I even saw it on his Facebook page, you could just see it on their face. I think maybe I'm just developing a sixth sense for it. And in their eyes. They have sort of some deeper understanding of a few things. Like, they're not just shallow thinkers. You can kind of see it on them. So when someone's part of one of those secret society cults, and they've maybe thought about something a little bit deeper than the average bear. There we go. There's a Freemasonry reference right there. Right on. I totally called it before I confirmed it by looking on his Facebook page. This dude is in one of them secret societies. He's probably a Mason. There's another one. By the way, boss, Jeremy, did you know? I figured out what the deep dark, it's going to have layered meanings, obviously. Layered meanings. But do you know what this eye means in the center of that upward pointing triangle? There is a dark, deep, dark meaning to it. It's going to have sugar-coated, layered meanings. Obviously, these symbols typically have several meanings, but then there's like a sugar-coated, benign one that they give to the public, and then there's the deep, dark one that taps into the darkest parts of human nature, like the monster that's in all of us, which is it's the reptile mind, the survival mind. We all have it deep down, and we need it to some degree, but you're not supposed to let that thing rule you. So here's what that means. Let's go back up to this one. Go to a porn site. I suggest youporn.com. It's free. And type in deflowering videos. Because that's where I've seen you could probably catch pictures of this the most. Or you can just Google image it. Typically, there's a shot in those videos. So deflowering video, for those of you who don't know, is a video where typically a teenage girl who's of age, hopefully, has decided to sell her virginity and let it be recorded, and she gets paid. So hopefully everything's on the up and up with that, and they are of appropriate age. The ones I've seen, they looked to be. But a shot that typically comes in those videos, and why was I looking at porn? Okay, I won't lie and say I've never watched porn for watching porn. But I've been studying the trends in pornography recently, because I realized I'm trying to get to the core of what does that monster, that deep dark monster, want the most, because that is sort of the devil in all of us. And so I'm trying to figure out what does it ultimately want. I realized one of the best ways to figure that out is look at the trends in pornography. What do dudes want most? And one of the biggest trends is well, I can tell you right now, they want to choke women to death with their dicks. That seems to be the biggest trend. They want to F us to death with their pee-pees. That's what's deep down in their little reptile minds. Anyway, go to one of those videos, deflowering video. And there's almost always a shot in one of those videos where the man who's about to take her virginity spreads her down there and shows the camera that she is indeed a virgin, shows her hymen. And guess what it looks like? That's right. It's an upward pointing triangle with a little weirdo glubby thing, a hole in the middle, obviously, and a weird little, thing in the middle. The hymen. Yeah. Yep. That's what this means, actually. That's the deep dark. That's one of the layered meanings. It's innocence, virginity, and the G. Oh my gosh, I could get into that with the fallen sun, and you have to understand how light works. I'll post a video. I already made a video getting into it, sort of, because it begins to explain the beliefs of this cult, which seem to be a lot of it's based on really just the way things work if you figure out how light works, start to study how light works, and you realize that all of physical existence is made up of light and color. So then once you understand how light works, you start to understand things a bit better. Yeah, so just saying, just wondering if you realize that, Jeremy, like this symbol here has a deep dark meaning, and that's one of them. It is a little girl's coochie and innocence right there. That's one of the things that they don't worship the little. Well, I don't think they worship it. But yeah, I won't get more into the cult, but still, I sometimes wonder if you Freemasons really think on the symbols that you're flashing around and what they could possibly mean. I think that there's probably lots of Freemasons out there that will only ever get so far in their understanding of these symbols and what they mean. And then there are some that will, because they are in touch with their monster, either because they went exploring in the right-hand path, which is sort of Buddha under the Bodhi tree. You explore in your own mind what you are in, like the darkest side of you, because that's how you you reach enlightenment. You have to know yourself. So that's not just knowing the good side of yourself, that's knowing the darker side of your nature. And that can be done right-hand path tactic, which is just think it through, put yourself there, imagine yourself, so on and so forth. Now, left-hand pathers, though, they tend to be more visceral. They like to explore the darker side of their animal nature viscerally. They like to live it. Well, I can tell you just by thinking it through and doing it the right-hand pathway, the darkest, so there's sort of two monsters deep down there in the reptile mind. And these two things will be the two main wills that everybody will have. You'll have either one or the other. One is like the male survival reptile mind. It is, I need to control everything. I need to control my food source, my mates, my territory, my competitors, because that's what will ensure my survival. The other monster coming out of that reptile mind is the mom, because if you study, even reptilian nature, a lot of reptile moms are vicious defenders of their offspring. Like, think of a gator or crocodile. I don't know if they both do it or if it's just one. Where the mom, first of all, she'll defend the nest of eggs from all kinds of stuff. She'll sit around by it all the time. She doesn't just lay her eggs and take off. She'll sit by it and defend that nest. And then when the babies hatch, she'll actually let them hang out in her mouth to protect them. And she won't eat them. I'd say that's a remarkable amount of self-control. And she defends them with her own life. So that's selflessness. But then the other side of it, the boy reptile mind side of it, is selfishness. Total selfishness. Total dominance. Total control over everything around themselves. But very little control over themselves, typically. Whereas the monster mom coming out of the reptile mind is more self-controlled and less about controlling other things, because it takes a lot of self-control and a lot of being okay with not being in control of other things to let your babies crawl around in your mouth and not act upon your instinct to eat them. Especially if you're a reptile and it's practically what do you call it? A triggered thing, if you touch the inside of their mouth, they just snap shut, But not when they get their own babies sitting in there. That's really interesting that they can control themselves under those circumstances. So those will be the two wills, the two real desires, the two real wills that everybody will have. Either one of the two, deep down in yourself. You will either be the selfish, male, reptile, concerned entirely with your own survival, and that's what you will think about mostly. How to control things, how to gain more control, how to gain more power. Selfishness, or it'll be the mom side. It will be selflessness and defense of innocence and self-sacrifice for the next generation and so on and so forth. So, yeah, I made a video at one point talking about how your deciding factor, the part of your mind that makes decisions, is not your will. Please do not confuse those two things. Your will is your deepest, darkest desire, and that goes down all the way down into your reptile mind. And that's, what, like I said, going to be one of those two things. So you have to figure out what you really are. Are you the mom, or are you the selfish little prick? I'm of the opinion that the people I am researching, investigating in this cult, they already did that digging. They already peeled back the onion, and they had a look inside to see which monster they were. And they know they're not the mom. They are not selfless. They do not self-sacrifice for the future. They do not want to self-control. They do not want to have to control themselves. They want to be totally free. Total freedom is not the answer to life. Freedom! That's stupid. Mel Gibson is an idiot. The meaning of life is meaningfulness. To live a meaningful life is the meaning of life. You can't have meaningfulness with total freedom. Jimmy Savile, for those of you who don't know who Jimmy Savile he was a celebrity, British celebrity. Came out after he died that he had raped over 500 children and disabled people. He gave an interview that you can find online where he states quite clearly that the trick to life is to live totally free. And you can kind of feel it. There's a bit of a pause and an agitation in his interviewer. Because you could feel like he wasn't okay with that answer, but he couldn't quite put his finger on what about Jimmy's answer he didn't like, so he didn't pursue it and moved on. Well, I can tell you what was wrong with Jimmy's answer. Total freedom means living free of morals and ethics and self-control and boundaries. That's what total freedom means. If we had total freedom, we wouldn't have laws. We can't have that because we need laws. Some laws are necessary, like the law of attraction, law of gravity, so on. Without those things, the atmosphere would separate from the planet and we'd all float off into space and asphyxiate. What's the point of that? Where's the meaningfulness? So much for freedom. Freedom is not the point. Idiots think that. Oh, sorry, truck going by. Idiots who don't think too much about it. Meaningfulness is the point. To live a meaningful life is the meaning of life. Mothers tend to be more about meaningfulness. Dudes tend to be more about freedom because they're morons. No offense, dude. I had every faith in you growing up. My swinging dicks. I absolutely did. Had every faith. It was just a long, slow wearing down. Just by your own behavior. My observations and experience with you guys. Like, I want a husband. But I want a man. A real man, not a little boy who always want to be free all the time. You really need to grow up. And it seems like men are few and far between anymore. If they exist at all. I hear tell they were a plentiful once. But I don't know where they are anymore. Now we just got little pricks like David Saintsing. Thinking that they're hard-working men. when they're playing with their little construction toys. Oh my gosh. I'm a hard worker, David, not you. You see all this shit I'm sitting figuring out about secret societies that have been around for hundreds, if not thousands of years? I didn't sell out and join up with some pansy-ass secret society and get handed all the answers. I Nancy Drew'd my way here, bitches. So, I'm doing hard work, David. I'm twisting my brain inside out trying to figure these people out and what they're doing, because I've seen too many hints here and there of child abuse, references to child abuse, people pimping out their own children or doing awful things with their own children. So, well, I mean, as if pimping them out isn't awful enough, but some of them don't necessarily pimp them out. They just keep them all to themselves. Ugh. I do hard work, David. You moron. You play with yourself. Go fuck yourself, you loser. Damn.